Share this article. Tweet Brent Jasvinsky November 1, 2017. Kawasaki's Versys 300 impressed us when we first rode it this spring, with John Burns reporting that it would be a good machine to propagate your bigger adventures. Then, after some time on it this summer, its versatility and affordability helped us decide to give it accolades as the honorable mention in our Best on Off-Road Adventure Motorcycle of 2017. To better put it to test, we assigned our newest editor, Brent Jasvinsky, to load up the littlest Versys with camping gear and head out on the road for an adventure of his own. Ed, the world is a big place and there's a lot to be seen. However, there's simply not enough minutes, hours or even years in this crazy space-time continuum we live in to see it all. While this might be the most obvious understatement of the year, the new Kawasaki Versys 300 most certainly is not. There's a new class of lightweight adventure touring motorcycles on the market and they're designed to get people out there, to escape the city, off the grid and into the wild. Don't let the small displacement motor fool you into thinking that the Versys 300 isn't a capable machine, because I'm here to tell you it is. Over the course of 2 days and about 500 miles, I had the pleasure of becoming very well acquainted with this entry-level adventurer. I threw everything I could at the poor bike to see what it could and couldn't do, and to my pleasant surprise, the list of colds turned out to be a lot longer than I had expected. The great outdoors. What better way to enjoy it than on 2 wheels? All packed up with my tent, sleeping bag and fishing gear. I decided to travel pretty light considering I was only camping for 1 night, but the little Versys is capable of muling plenty more. The Versys 300 is a great all-arounder that comes with all the equipment you would expect from a versatile adventure touring bike, including a large 4.5-gallon fuel tank, a tall windscreen, rear rack, long travel suspension and 19 and 17-inch spoked front and rear wheels. The 296cc counterbalanced twin-cylinder motor is derived from the Ninja 300 and spins like a top right from the bottom of the revs all the way to its 12K redline. Paired with the motor is a 6-speed transmission whose final drive gearing has been reduced by 9%, relative to the Ninja 300 donor, to maximize the bike's versatility. The result is a first gear that allows the Versys to crawl along with a low chance of stalling. You almost literally have to try to stall it, otherwise it just keeps chugging along. This is beneficial in the tighter, trickier off-road scenarios you're likely to find yourself in aboard the Cal, because after all, with a bike like this, the adventure doesn't stop just because the pavement ends. Low gearing is a benefit to budding riders as it builds confidence. Stalling sucks. It's frustrating and embarrassing for new and seasoned riders alike. It's the last thing a new rider needs and something a vet rider can appreciate. Additional kudos to the clutch that requires just a single finger to operate. There's plenty of adventure waiting out there for his motorcyclists. Although the Versys 300's tires are more street-biased, they made light work of high desert, sandy washes. While this gearing reduction is great for slow speed and off-road maneuvering, the Versys 300 runs out of legs pretty quickly on top, sort of casual riding around town sees you shifting into 6th around 50 miles per hour, but 6th gear is long and there's thousands more revs to work with. Cruising down the freeway at 80 yields about 9,500 revolutions per minute, which is pretty high in the rev range considering it redlines at 12,000. But you wouldn't know the motor was working that hard unless you looked at the tach. The motor is that smooth, and besides, no one is buying the Versys 300 to set land speed records or go drag racing. That's not what it was designed for. Additionally, the bike has a fairly steep 24.3-degree rake that makes it super nimble and quick steering around town, although speeds north of 80 miles per hour can make the front end feel a bit nervous. Like I said, though, speed is not the bike's intention and I don't hold this against it. But for what it's worth, 6th gear pinned right up to the rev limiter reads 96 miles per hour on the speedo. A lighter rider could crack triple digits, I'm sure. Getting to this spot required crossing a rock garden and then up a steep embankment covered in loose gravel. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Riding the Versys 300 through twisty canyon roads is a blast. The suspension is firm enough and translates a good feel for the road to the rider. This portion of my time spent with the little 300. Well, actually, hold on, I keep wanting to say little but the bike isn't really little at all. It's full-sized in nearly every dimension except for perhaps the displacement of its motor. Anyway, it was in the canyons that I really put the Versys through its paces. We shared a lot of full throttle action, and although the engine temperature rose up to its higher limits, the little motor never wavered and kept spinning along smoothly. We admire avid proprietors of riding small bikes fast because oftentimes you get to use 100% of their potential, and the Versys 300 proved to have plenty of potential. After the canyon roads, I introduced the lightweight overlander to the dirt and sand of the desert. I didn't get too gnarly with the Versys because I didn't want to potentially break a bike I don't own, but nevertheless, the bike traversed terrain that most owners might be skeptical to attempt. This included a 1.5-foot deep river crossing, a few log jumps, some dicey single track, a couple sand washes and several miles of fire roads. I'm happy to report that the Versys tackled everything without the slightest of hiccups. I don't know if the Kawi was more fun on or off-road. The Versys went anywhere I pointed it. Perhaps the bike's most impressive attribute noticed while off-roading was how well the ABS brakes worked. As a disclaimer, I think ABS brakes are great when you need them, but it irks me when they're too sensitive and engage over-eagerly. This was one of my few qualms about the otherwise great-performing Kawi Z900. Barreling down a whooped-out fire road at about 50 miles per hour, I grabbed a fistful of front brake and slammed the rear. Now I know what you're thinking, trying to lock up the brakes on a rough dirt road going that fast ought to go over like a fart in church, but the Versys 300 remained planted and came to a halt swiftly and predictably. The suspension soaked up the bumps and kept the bike well balanced. Surprised by the results this initial experiment yielded, I decided to try it again, and again with the same results. It was at this point in our journey when I finally felt like I had broken the horse. We now had a mutual trust and understanding of each other. The further I pushed the Versys, the more it settled into its element. The world is its oyster. The rest of our time spent together was gravy. And though it's not a full-on adventure bike, the Versys 300 is a well-balanced package that will take you off the grid and into the wild with confidence. While it does most things as well as a bigger bike, I wouldn't be doing our readers justice without pointing out its shortcomings. First of all, I'd like to mention that the step seat was roomy, but after 50 miles, my ass started begging for mercy. I've ridden dirt bikes with softer seats, and while it wasn't so much the firmness on top that bothered me, it was more so the pressure points on the upper inside of my thighs that got me squirming. Single track, baby. Another thing I noticed was that the windscreen could have been a wee bit taller. It deflects air nicely at faster speeds, but the wind stream would hit me right in the top of the helmet, which caused some unwanted turbulence. This, though, is a product of my 6'1" height more so than anything else, but a little adjustability would be nice. Finally, the rear rack provides ample space for you to carry your belongings with plenty of different anchor points, but the Versys 300 would benefit immensely from a small, waterproof storage compartment somewhere in the front fairing. Just a thought, Kawasaki. These small grumbles pale in comparison to what the Versys is actually capable of, and with a price tag of $5,699 wobs $5,399 without, there's even less to complain about. With its 4.5-gallon fuel tank, a gas-sipping motor, refueling stops are few and far between. Despite often turning the twist grip to its stop, the Versys 300 delivered an impressive 62.4 mpg, which makes it kind to your wallet. I set up camp just off the lake's edge. You could hear coyotes howling all night long. It was pretty neat, and by pretty neat, I mean a little unnerving. There must have been dozens all around. The Versys was there to protect me, hee hee. Overall, Kawasaki designers hit the nail on the head with the Versys 300. There will be riders to dismiss the smallest Versys based only on its engine displacement. They will assume it's slow to accelerate, must be hammered continually to maintain cruising speed, and given its low price, will feel cheap. Those people will miss out on a great machine. However, these same reasons are part of what makes the Versys 300 so much fun. Its unintimidating demeanor is perhaps its greatest strength. Combined with the rest of its features, the Versys 300 is an impressive intro bike both on and off-road that should largely satisfy a rider's appetite for two-wheeled adventure. I got up early and cast a few lines. The fish must have ate already that morning, though. They didn't seem too hungry.